Once frozen wasteland, the wild, inhospitable Arctic is becoming a contest across new frontiers. Melting ice is opening shipping routes and releasing energy resources, prompting a scramble for control and access. Competing businesses race to secure their advantage, while rival military commanders prepare for what could become a new theatre of war. President Vladimir Putin, in his quest to restore Russia to its former greatness, is focusing on the Arctic as a strategic area over which he could have near total control. The Arctic links the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, and much of it runs along Russia's northern coastlines. Climatologists estimate that ice will soon have melted enough to force regular trading passages between Asia to Europe, thousands of miles shorter than current routes, cutting costs and journey times. I'm your host Kasim, and thanks for joining me for another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss the geopolitics of the Arctic. Just before we begin, we would like to give a special shout out to Humphrey HAWKSLEY, who is the author of this video. HAWKSLEY is the author of 2 thrillers of the Rake Ozena series, which are set at each end of the Northern Sea passages, Man on Ice right on the US-Russian border, and Man on Edge in northern Norway in the Russian bastion of defence. The books are a must-read to learn about the potential type of scenarios that could occur if a clash occurred over the Arctic. You can buy a copy of the books on www.manonice.co.uk. We strongly recommend them and can promise you will not be disappointed. Even now, with China and Russia leading the way, the route is used by pioneering freight companies deploying a new style of ice-breaking convoy. The Arctic has drawn the world's 2 most authoritarian nations, Russia and China, into an alliance of interests revolving around trade, energy and defence. In Asia, Russian territory runs through the Bering Strait, with the United States at its closest point, barely 2 miles away. This is where the 2 superpowers share borders and their sovereign territories come face to face. In Europe, Russia has created its bastion of defence, which runs from far along its coastline out into the North Atlantic. Right through the Arctic, Putin has modernised and rebuilt a string of military bases, deploying fighters, bombers and missiles, directly challenging the authority of the United States. Other countries too are eyeing the Arctic. The most powerful and determined is China. Last year, the Arctic became the theatre for unprecedented military exercises involving thousands of ships and aircraft. Russia, with China alongside, held its exercise in the Far East, while in Northern Europe, American and European forces staged the biggest combat drills since the Cold War. Discovery of oil in remote and the little-known deserts in the early 20th century transformed the Middle East in ways that have had an impact on all of our lives. Now in the Arctic, we will feel similar repercussions. This unforgiving region of the high north has captured imaginations for centuries. Its name comes from the Greek Arctikos, meaning near the bear, as in the constellations of stars seen from around the North Pole. Unlike colder Antarctica in the south, which is land covered with a massive ice sheet, the warmer Arctic is frozen seawater. It comprises the world's smallest ocean, covering 5.5 million square miles, that circle the roof of the world and spreads through 8 countries: Canada, Finland, Greenland controlled by Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden and the United States. Less than 5 million people live there, most native to the Arctic. The Inuit or Eskimo come from Alaska, northern Canada, Greenland and Russia. Northern Scandinavia is home to the Sami. These are rugged, independent people familiar with extreme environments. They get around on dog sleds, snowmobiles, heavy-duty vehicles and aircraft. In the summer there is never-ending light and temperatures can reach the highs of Europe. In the winter, darkness prevails, with cold routinely plunging below 50 degrees Celsius. While Russia is the big beast of the region, there are numerous disputes between governments and no agreement as to whether new trade routes are international waters or sovereign territory. Meanwhile, shipping companies are designing ice-breaking carriers. Urban planners look to transform remote coastal villages into ports and cities. Energy giants are mapping areas of exploration. Strategically, the Arctic is estimated to hold 30% of the world's natural gas and 13% of its oil. Russia's massive natural gas project on Siberia's Yamal Peninsula in the far north of Russia stands as a striking example of the challenges both technically and in the arena of geopolitics. Well inside the Arctic Circle on the wild, frozen and remote estuary of the Ob River in western Siberia, Yamal is one of the world's biggest and most complex resource extraction projects, with plans to create a flow of natural gas in Asia and Europe. Temperatures fall to below -50 Celsius and intricate engineering is needed to stabilize the shifting permafrost. The area is so inaccessible that Russia is developing a fleet of tankers capable of sailing year-round to break up ice packs up to 2.5 meters thick. Yamal is an example of the knock-on impact of international foreign policy. American investors had to pull out in 2014 after Russia was sanctioned over Ukraine and its taking of Crimea. China moved in and now holds a 39% share in the project and guaranteed access to natural gas supplies. It's a good deal for both. Russia needs technology and investment to exploit these resources, and China needs long-term reliable partnerships because it lacks direct land and sea access to the Arctic. China, Europe, Russia and the United States rub up against each other as they race to achieve their goals. Russia has declared the Arctic as key to its future. Europe is bolstering its defences. China, which does not even hold Arctic territory, plans to build a polar Silk Road there. The US has pledged to keep the Arctic free and open, much as it has pledged for the Indo-Pacific. The Arctic is now at the top of the US and European defence agendas. Russia's new military bases has created a scenario that, with China alongside, these two authoritarian states could exploit the Arctic as their own. The energy deal China has signed with Russia ensures a pragmatic alliance between the governments that could last decades. There are already signs of big power boundary testing. In 2016, Russian special forces illegally flew into the Arctic island group of Svalbard, where an international treaty forbids military activity. In 2017, China tried to buy a disused military base in strategically located Greenland, which would have given it a foothold in the North Atlantic. President Trump was mocked when he recently suggested that the United States should buy Greenland. But America did buy Alaska in 1867 to stop Russian threats. It cannot allow China or Russia to gain influence in a territory as strategically positioned in the North Atlantic as Greenland. There is a dystopian prospect that the Arctic could fall under the shadow of Russia and China, which may pollute the environment, militarize the region and take control of the shortest trade routes between Asia and Europe. There are also other more positive scenarios, such as building a bridge or tunnel across the Bering Strait between Russia and America with high-speed rail links, factories and new communities. But one thing is certain, this beautiful, hostile and wild part of the world might for now be inaccessible to most of us, but as the ice melts, it will become part and parcel of the lives of our children and grandchildren. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. We would like to give a special shout out to author Humphrey HAWKSLEY, whose two thrillers of the Rake Azena series are set at each end of the Northern Sea passages, Man on Ice right on the US-Russian border and Man on Edge in northern Norway in the Russian bastion of defence. We strongly recommend you buy a copy of this book, which is hugely entertaining, full of suspense and has had some fantastic reviews. You can buy the books on www.manonice.co.uk. Thanks for watching again and see you next time.